Dusk. One of our highest rated shooters of 2018, Dusk is a riff on classic FPS games, with clear influences from Quake, Doom and Half-Life. If you worried first-person shooters had gotten too slow since the 90s ended, this is probably the game for you. Set across 3 campaigns, you'll play with a fun and often ludicrous armory, the Riveter, for example, which launches exploding rivets at your foes. It's more than just a throwback, though, filled with memorable, varied levels and a genuinely good little horror-themed story. Titanfall 2. Somehow Titanfall 2's campaign ended up being the star of the show for us, despite a host of high-value multiplayer options as well. Development of the game's single player was treated like a game jam of sorts, where different members of the team would pitch their ideas for what a single-player Titanfall 2 idea level looked like. The end result brings a really curious mix of thrilling platforming challenges, one-off level-changing tools and even puzzle elements, alongside BT, a charming mech pal who's like having a giant talking metal dog. Bulletstorm. Bulletstorm is an incredibly well-made score attack shooter that's a little different than everything else on the list. The energy leash, the ability to kick enemies and the fast player movement give you plenty of scope to put together cool, flashy combos and to use your armory creatively. The sweary, deliberately immature script, put together by comic book writer Rick Remender, matches the over-the-top action perfectly. It's available in an upgraded full-clip edition on Steam, complete with optional embarrassing Duke Nukem appendage. Prey. Prey's 2017 reboot from the minds behind the Dishonored series is a modern immersive sim classic. Leveraging the greatest ideas from its System Shock predecessors with modern sensibilities and Arkane's incredible eye for aesthetic design, Prey is a dense, lethal playground for experimentation and discovery. Locked door? Well, you can repair it yourself, or force it open, or scrounge through an office for a key, or warp into a coffee mug and roll through a crack in the window, or shoot a Nerf dart through that same crack to press a button that unlocks it from within. The latest Prey is Arkane's greatest expression of its play it your way mantra and can be enjoyed through numerous playthroughs as a result. No one lives forever. Where many classics play better in our memories than on our modern PCs, No One Lives Forever holds up brilliantly today thanks to the garish 60s art direction, a fine arsenal, from a petite .38 airweight with dum-dum rounds to lipstick grenades and a briefcase missile launcher, as well as remarkably sophisticated AI. Monolith wraps it all up in endlessly inventive level design and writing so consistently hilarious that it created its own genre, the comedy FPS, and hasn't been outdone since. If only there was an easy way to download it on digital platforms today. Metro Exodus. Metro Exodus trades the claustrophobic Moscow subway tunnels of Metro 2033 and Metro Last Light for a mix of open and linear environments across an unexpectedly lush, living Russia. It's still the same shooter at its core, though, with horrific enemies, boisterous comrades, loud, crappy guns, and the best Eastern European post-apocalypse this side of STALKER. But what really makes it work is its heart. The men and women you travel with are as rough and rugged as they come, but they have a genuine love for one another that transcends the rote camaraderie of most shooters, and one of the game's most memorable moments isn't an action sequence, although there are plenty of those, but a mournful, introspective wedding song about the loss of innocence during a time of war. 2033 and Last Light are smaller and much more linear than Exodus, but their portrayals of a slow, stoic struggle to survive in a genuinely awful wasteland are still well worth playing too. Black Mesa. Half-Life, Alyx's level designer only played around 5 hours of the original Half-Life before dropping it for fan remake Black Mesa instead. And for good reason. What started as a mod homage to the original game blossomed, very slowly, over 15 years into a full-blown reinterpretation. Built-in source, Half-Life 2's familiar physics make for more complex puzzles and explosive combat at a much larger scale. The early chapters of Black Mesa actually feel like the world-rending, panic disaster the low-poly original was gunning for. It's a goddamn nightmare, and that's all before getting to Zen, a total reimagining of Half-Life's worst bits. Zen is practically its own game now. Using the long jump module to fly around lush alien rainforests and through Vortigaunt labor camps is thrilling, tragic, and awe-inspiring. Zen feels truly alien, and fully integrated with the greater Half-Life mythos. It's as creative and surprising as anything Valve would make themselves. Black Mesa is canon. BioShock. BioShock's greatest asset is its setting, and what Rapture provides from its ruined Eden are enemies that are hysterical, tragic figures. One encounter with a splicer or a Big Daddy can arc from curiosity to sympathy, and then swing into full-on fear and violent panic. One of the best things Irrational does is imbue its monsters with terrifying sound design, the psychotic speech of splicers, the foghorn drone and steel steps of the Big Daddies. The claustrophobia and anxiety Rapture throws at you gives you permission to fight recklessly, tooth and nail with powerful plasmids and upgraded shotguns as a way of getting revenge on the horrors that haunt you. STALKER. Call of Pripyat. What's most refreshing about Pripyat is how much trust it puts in you to figure out its brutal setting yourself. In the zone, standing next to the wrong pawn might be all it takes to kill you. It's the genre's capital city of death, populated with zombies that carry guns, invisible humanoid thulas, and horrifying walls of energy that emanate nope in a mile-wide radius. It's a game blissfully low of exposition and hand-holding, making each time you escape alive feel earned. GSC's compromises between realism and playability are smart, and excellent ballistics modeling and tracer effects bullet make for gritty firefights. It only improves with mods. A medieval. You don't have to be a fan of Hexen to enjoy pinning enemies to walls with spikes hurled from a Morningstar. A medieval is a throwback to certain FPS classics, but not a nostalgia trip. Its lo-fi temples, absurd bosses, the space worm fight is something else, and mythical weapons are all great in their own right. The hard mode is just about perfect as far as FPS difficulty levels go. Fast and challenging, but never hopeless, especially because you can go Super Saiyan when you collect enough soul juice. Fear. F.E.A.R. Supernatural encounters are somewhat segregated from its shootouts. One moment you're a time-slowing, slide-kicking SWAT Superman, the next quarter you're peeing your pants because an 8-year-old ghost is lurking in your hallway. That pacing empowers and scares you, a feat for games that combine action and horror. The creepiness that permeates everything works with F.E.A.R's outstanding weapon design, clever enemy pathfinding, and dimly lit offices that are simultaneously unsettling and cathartic to blow apart in slow motion. Devil Daggers. The satanic first-person time attack game does nothing to explain itself, dropping you into a flat hellplane where you stave off waves of demons of increasing number and difficulty. It initially comes off as a stylish ode to 90s FPS games and arcade shooters like Robotron or Geometry Wars, but unlike those games, Devil Daggers isn't intent on leaving you smiling. It's bleak in its presentation and unforgiving in its play. One hit from a stray demon, and it's over. Even surviving a minute is quite the testament. Because Devil Daggers concentrates so intently on spatial awareness and aim, it can leverage every aspect of its design in crucial ways. For example, since the first-person perspective means you can't see what's behind you, learning specific demon sounds and relating their position to where you hear them is a skill essential to success. A single run can take anywhere from 5 seconds to 5 minutes, if you're a god, which is a short enough cycle to learn how specific demons behave, how firing modes affect mobility, spawn patterns. It's the kind of game that you can see the shape of within a minute of play, but one that hides a ton of depth in its focused design. Devil Daggers may not have an explosive campaign or a cutthroat multiplayer mode or a huge arsenal of fun weapons, but it embodies what makes shooters so great in a dense package, pointing and clicking demon skulls out of existence. Half-Life, Alyx. There's a big barrier to entry since it's VR only, but despite only having 3 guns to choose from, Half-Life, Alyx is an exciting and at many times utterly frantic shooter. As headcrabs scuttle, zombies lurch, and antlions charge, you'll have to physically pop fresh clips into your pistol and jam shells into your shotgun, sometimes in near-complete darkness. Learning to perform the action smoothly takes time, and they're put to the test regularly as swarms of monsters and combined soldiers come at you from all sides. Weapons are upgradable so you can eventually add a grenade launcher to your shotty and a hefty magazine expansion to your pulse pistol for expelling long bursts of fire, positively cathartic after being careful with your ammo in the early sections of the game. Advertisement. From claustrophobic horror-filled tunnels and basements to the wide-ranging firefights on the surface, Alyx is a heart-pounding and, if your hands didn't both have controllers in them, nail-biting experience. With its extremely likable characters, including Alyx herself, Of course, new enemy types and old favorites, and an absolutely gorgeous setting and intriguing story. Alyx is an excellent blend of the joys of earlier Half-Life games and the intricacies of VR. Wolfenstein The New Order. This big, silly revival of Wolfenstein has inventive level design, a daft but entertaining story based on an alternate World War II history, and guns that feel amazing to fire. It also made dual-wielding an exciting idea for the first time in about a decade. You battle boilerplate robo-dogs, you fight Nazis on the moon. The feel of the machine guns and shotguns is spot on. The former Starbreeze leads who formed Machine Games reinterpreted Wolfenstein in a way that made it exciting and new both for the series' existing audience and for those gamers coming in fresh. This big, chunky shooter is so much more than just a retro pastiche, offering variety and production values you rarely get to enjoy in single-player games these days. The sequel is good, but we prefer this game, play it first. Doom and Doom 2. Wolfenstein 3D preceded it by a year, but Doom is in the DNA of everything here. It's the progenitor of moving, aiming, and shooting things that hate your health bar in a 3D environment. Hunting for access cards and thumbing walls with spacebar doesn't have the appeal today that it did in 1993, but Carmack's technical feats, like creating height differences in a 3D environment, a totally new concept at the time, and well-animated sprites help Doom hold up as an agile, colorful, essential shooter that happens to be the foundation for every other game here. Doom and Doom 2 have also been elevated by the modding community. More than 20 years later, they're still going strong. You'll find new weapons, new campaigns and total conversions that let you be everything from a pirate to a cartoon square. Even John Romero is still releasing maps. Doom Eternal. This one's for all the extreme pointers and clickers out there. We recommend Doom 2016 as a warm-up, an introduction to the faster pace and health-giving systems like glory kills that encourage aggressive, reckless play. Because Doom Eternal moves much faster, with added mobility like the dash and the ability to swing from monkey bars, and it squeezes every vital resource with an iron grip. Health, armor, and ammo deplete faster than ever, arenas are bigger and filled with more demons overall, making for a more desperate, stressful shooter than the series past. It's a sweatfest, one that tasks you with juggling 8 guns, their multiple alternate firing modes, a chainsaw, a sword, a flamethrower, grenades, glory kills, demon punches, dashes, and more, some of which are the only means of returning those vital resources to you. You're constantly riding the edge of death, bouncing in and out of the action to get shots in and stock back up on whatever resource is hurting the most, hopefully, before it's too late. Advertisement. And that's all before Eternal introduces melee enemies that force you to completely reconfigure age-old shooter habits into something like a reserved Dark Souls in the middle of a traditional arena hellstorm. It's a lot. A lot of a good thing. The signal from Tölva. This deliberately slow-paced and engaging FPS has shades of Stalker with a gorgeous sci-fi open world that's based on concept illustrations by former Rockstar artist Ian McQuay. You hijack a surveyor drone, investigating the signal in the title, and fend off other robot factions as you explore the planet's surface. Later in the game you get to command other surveyors, too, who can help you in combat. The unusual and memorable setting, combined with great sounding and feeling guns, makes this one of the more notable recent cult hits on Steam.